In this video, we're going to look at the women's long jump world record progression, or timeline of the records, and why no one has come close to the record recently. By the way, this is a bit lengthy, so I put timestamps in the description below if you want to skip ahead through the records. The current women's long jump world record has stood since 1988. But there's something interesting, if not odd, about this record and its longevity. You see, the record has been broken 36 times officially, and as the saying goes, records are meant to be broken. But apparently not, because why can no one break this one anymore? Okay, so first we have to look at where it all started. When the Olympics were revived back in 1896, track and field was limited to men only. So in 1919, French leaders of the Fédération Sportive Féminine Internationale, FSFI for short, they approached the heads of the International Olympic Committee, or the IOC that we know today, requesting that women be allowed to compete in track and field at the 1920 Olympic Games, and they said no. Only feminine sports were allowed, such as tennis or dancing. So in 1922, the FSFI organized an international women's-only track and field competition, known as the 1922 Women Olympic Games. The Women's Olympics were held every 4 years until a deal was struck with the IOC, which opened up the Olympics to allow women to compete at the 1928 Olympic Games in Amsterdam. And as part of that agreement between the IOC and the FSFI, the Women's Olympic Games were renamed to the Women's World Games, but they were short-lived and handing over full control to the IAAF in 1936. Now this is important because the IAAF World Athletics, they're the governing body that officially recognizes a record in athletics. So any record that occurred from the established date of the FSFI was valid. So what was our first official women's long jump world record? Muriel Mejzlíková II was a Czech athlete who jumped 5.16 meters, or 16 feet 11 inches, in 1922. She then improved her record 1 year later, breaking the 17-foot mark with a leap of 5.30 meters, or 17 feet 4.5 inches. Now, fun fact, she set the 4x100 meter record also, and on that team, there was actually 4 members, all named Marie. But even weirder was that 2 of the women were actually named Muriel Mejzlíková, and that's why she was named Muriel Mejzlíková II. Then, between 1926 and 1928, British athlete Muriel Cornell and Japanese athlete Kinue Hitomi would trade the record twice, with Muriel jumping 5.485 meters, or 17 feet 11 3/4 inches, followed by Kinue becoming the first woman to break the 18-foot mark with a jump of 5.50 meters, or 18 feet and a half inch. Muriel would then respond with a 5.575 meter jump, before Kinue would then again break another milestone, breaking the 19-foot barrier, jumping 5.98 meters, or 19 feet 7 1/4 inches. Now Kinue's record would stand for over 10 years until 1939, when Christel Schulz of Nazi Germany became the first woman to break both the 6-meter barrier and the 20-foot mark with a jump of 6.12 meters, or 20 feet 3/4 inches. Now, this was during World War II time, and domestic sporting events still took place in some German-occupied countries such as Holland. And one dominant athlete of that era was Fanny Blankers-Koen. She set 6 new world records in multiple events between 1942 and 1944. In 1943, just 1 year after giving birth to her first child, she would improve the long jump record to 6.25 meters, or 20 feet 6 inches. And she later became known as the Flying Housewife, as just after giving birth to her second child, and at age 30, she would win 4 gold medals at the 1948 London Olympics, which is when women's long jump officially made its debut, although long jump wasn't one of her medals. Now, Fanny's record would stand for over 11 years until 1954, when New Zealander and New Zealand's first Olympic champion, Yvette Williams, jumped just 1 inch further with a leap of 6.28 meters, or 20 feet 7 inches. And if we look at the record progression, you'll notice that basically from this point until the current record in 1988, it gradually increases with small and frequent jumps. So at this point, we get to take a step back and look at what was going on in history. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, you had the first wave of the women's rights movement. The ideology of women in sports was not a popular opinion prior to this, so it makes sense that less women participating means less competition. Then in the 1940s, millions of women globally entered the workforce during World War II. Women had to take over many of men's roles in order to maintain the economy, and so after World War II, the perception of women in sports changed, albeit gradually, but it improved nonetheless. So it's likely that as more women began competing, the level of competition raised with it. as well as the opportunity to compete in sanctioned events, where marks would be officially recorded. Okay, so now back to the timeline. After Yvette Williams from New Zealand, women's long jump was pretty much dominated by the Europeans. Galina Popova of Soviet Russia tied Yvette's record in September 1955, and then 2 months later improved that record to 6.31 meters, or 20 feet 8 1/4 inches. The following year, at the 1956 Melbourne Olympics, Polish athlete Elżbieta Krzesińska, who had set the world record 3 months earlier at 6.35 meters, or 20 feet 10 inches, tied her record to win the gold medal. That record stood for 4 years until 1960, when East German Hildrun Laufer-Claus jumped 6.40 meters, or 20 feet 11 3/4 inches, and then improved her record a year later, breaking the 21-foot barrier with a jump of 6.42 meters, or 21 feet 3/4 inches. But that record lasted less than a month when Tatyana Shchelkanova of Soviet Russia set a world record of 6.48 meters, or 21 feet 3 inches, and extended it to 6.53 meters, or 21 feet 5 inches in 1962, and 6.70 meters, or 21 feet 11 3/4 inches in 1964. Then at the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, Tatyana won the bronze medal, placing behind British athlete Mary Rand, who won gold with a leap of 6.76 meters, or 22 feet 2 inches, to become the first British female to win an Olympic gold medal in track and field, and also the first woman to ever jump over 22 feet. Her record lasted 4 years until the next Olympics, when Romanian athlete Viorica Viscopoleanu jumped 6.82 meters, or 22 feet 4 1/2 inches. This was the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, which was at altitude, but it was also the same Olympics that saw, on the men's side of long jump, Bob Beamon shatter the world record by over 2 feet, jumping over 29 feet. 2 years later, in 1970, Heide Rosendahl of West Germany set a new record of 6.84 meters, or 22 feet 5 1/4 inches. And this would stand for almost 6 years, the longest tenure since the Flying Housewife's 11-year record back in the 1940s and 1950s. Then on May 9, 1976, East German Angela Voigt set a new record of 6.92 meters, or 22 feet 8 1/4 inches in Dresden, Germany. But it was broken only 10 days later by another East German athlete, Siegrun Siegl, with a mark of 6.99 meters, or 22 feet 11 inches. 2 years later, Soviet-Lithuanian athlete Vilma Bardauskiené, who at the time was being coached by Igor Tero-Avanesian, became the first female athlete to break both the 7-meter barrier and the 23-foot barrier in long jump. 7.07 meters, or 23 feet 2 1/4 inches, on August 8, 1978, and then improved her record 11 days later by 2 centimeters to 7.09 meters. That record lasted almost 4 years, and then on a single day, it was broken twice by 2 different Romanian athletes. It was August 1st, 1982 in Bucharest, Romania. Anișoara Cușmir would set a record of 7.15 meters, or 23 feet 5 1/4 inches. But then her countrywoman Valy Ionescu, she would outjump her by 5 centimeters to claim the world record at 7.20 meters, or 23 feet 7 1/4 inches. The following year, in 1983, Anișoara Cușmir would reclaim the world record 3 more times, first moving it to 7.21 meters, and then 2 more times on the same day to 7.27 meters, and then 7.43 meters, or 24 feet 4 1/2 inches, becoming the first woman to jump over 24 feet. Now we move to number 3 on the all-time list, East Germany and later unified Germany's Heiki Drechsler. She improved the record to 7.44 meters in 1985, and then to 7.45 meters, which is 24 feet 5 1/4 inches, twice in 1986. And that record, 7.45 meters, was tied 2 more times by her 2 biggest rivals, American Jackie Joyner-Kersee in 1987 and Galina Chistyakova of the Soviet Union, later Slovakia, in 1988. And at that same June 11th, 1988 meet, just after tying the Drechsler and Joyner-Kersee record, Galina Chistyakova jumped even further to a distance of 7.52 meters, or 24 feet 8 inches. From 1988 to now, that record still stands. But it's not the longest jump. Not even close. Heiki Drechsler has the furthest jump by a long shot. In 1992, 4 years after Galina set the record, Drechsler went down to Sestri, Italy, where a meet was held annually from 1988 to 1996 and again in 2004, and she jumped 7.63 meters, or 25 feet and a half inch. But for Drechsler's jump, the wind reading was a tailwind of 2.1 meters per second. That's just 0.1 over the allowable limit of 2.0 to be considered a world record. So with these distances in mind, we still have one question left unanswered. Why is this record, which has stood since 1988, so unbeatable? Well, I attempt to answer this question in a follow-up video. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell because you do not want to miss what I uncovered. Thanks for watching.